Hey, everybody! It's time for another wonderful edition of the Jersey Tales.
Yeehaw!
Yay.
Ooh.
Yeehaw!
You gotta toss in the yeehaw every now and then.
Okay. Oh, welcome everybody. Who's all on tonight's show? Well, Silox is here.
Howdy, howdy.
Lexi's here.
Oh, what's up? Sorry.
Bunt's here.
Howdy, howdy.
We got producer Lexi in the booth.
Hello.
And it's me, Red the Ram. Welcome everybody to the Jersey Tales. All right, so we all have had a wonderful break. Most of us got to see each other, except for one person in this chat.
I just moved and I was too broke. Sorry.
Yeah, understandable. It was fun though. It was great, like being able to hang out. And guess, of course, what we did together. Like it's the thing that you do at all the furry cons. You know, you sit around and watch football.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was. I would have loved to be there, but I'm sure you guys probably saw me somewhere in spirit.
Yeah. I just assumed that you were sitting there, like just constantly flicking Bunt's ear every time that Georgia screwed up.
And yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you got
but guess
me.
who
You got
won?
me.
Guess who won, though?
Well, we don't get to find out yet, because like if you follow the script, like we don't get to talk about that for a minute.
I mean, I didn't clarify myself. I just said, guess who won? I mean,
Uh,
Everybody wins.
yeah, but it was fun. It was fantastic. And Cheez-It update. Turns out
Oh.
everybody likes the Buffalo Cheez-Its.
yes,
Even the detractors.
Mm.
man, I had a whole box of that.
In my
I-
defense, I had been shooting for a while and I was hungry. So don't take it as me enjoying the Cheez-Its so much as I was hungry, and any kind of food would do at that point.
Finger
I-
wag. No, you were eating the. I was gonna say something. You were eating them dry.
I was very hungry, and any kind of food will do, so that's why I ate the Cheez-Its.
I believe your exact words were, these are kind of fire.
That never happened. There's
Oh,
no
it
I
did.
don't know. I heard it.
Yeah.
Ah.
And then the other detractor was producer Lexi, who for 6 months gave me shit for these Cheez-Its. You're going to have to censor that one. And then took a box home, and it is gone. Not a sponsor, but could be. And I would definitely take payment in Buffalo Cheez-Its. The amount of them that I order a year, it's a bit ridiculous. Anyway, moving on into more exciting things. So, opening topic. I don't know if you all watched some football this week. Well, I know that some of you did because we were all watching it roughly together. But the Bengals, they have a chance. We might go to the playoffs. 3%. We moved up from 2% playoff chance to 3% playoff chance.
Wow. What great chances, Edie.
Well, I mean, the percentage sounds worse than what the actual solution is. So if you just give me a second here, I will pull up the exact requirements that get us in there. I mean, the two big ones, if Denver loses, so if we win the final 3 games, we'd finish 9-8. It'll be our 4th straight year with a winning record. So I know we're like shooting for like Tomlin scores here, but like, hey, it's a thing. We also need the Dolphins and the Colts to lose one of their next 3 games, which that's completely plausible. Miami plays the 49ers, the Browns, and the Jets. You know, I don't know which one it's going to be, but like somebody's got to squish the fish. And then the Colts play the Titans, the Giants, and the Jaguars. So that one's probably not in our favor. That's probably the one thing that's going to hurt us. We also need the Chargers or the Broncos to go 0-3 for the rest of the game, the rest of the time. Now that sounds difficult because like the Chargers, I don't think is going to be the one that goes 0-3. Because the Chargers play Denver, and then on the really the Charger part, they're playing a bunch of weak teams, and so I don't think the Chargers are going to do what they're going to do. The important part is the Broncos, because the Broncos are playing us, so we have a chance. Because I mean, we have to win out anyway, so we have to beat the Broncos. And then after that, they've got they've got us, and then they close out against the Chiefs, and then they're playing the Chargers. So if the Chargers beat the Broncos, and then we beat the Broncos, and then the Chiefs beat the Broncos, then we're in with everything else that I'd already said. Now, that's our most likely scenario of actually working out for us because one, Mahomes is hurt, so he's going to miss this next game. So if the Chiefs lose this game, they won't rest their starters for that last game of the year against the Broncos, which gives us the best chance of getting in. The Steelers have already locked things up, so there's a chance that the Steelers might rest starters against us. So I don't know. It's weird. I'm not used to feeling optimism. Like this season, it was just we're never gonna make it. But then there's like this little 3%, and I saw it move from 2 to 3%, and I'm like, maybe there's a chance. So if we pull it off, it's gonna be great. But it actually doesn't seem that crazy. I don't know, Sai. What do you think?
Hello? Oh, I had myself muted again. Jesus Christ, this is like the second time this has happened. Okay. All right, give me a second. So the Jesus, I have a better chance of dating a supermodel than the Bengals do of making the playoffs. They have to have a lot of things go their way, and I don't see that happening over these next however many weeks are left in the season. If I was the Bengals, I wouldn't shoot for the playoffs. If anything, I would sit Burrow for the rest of the year and try and get a better draft pick. I don't think the Bengals are good enough to compete with anyone in the AFC playoffs, and I'll die on that hill. So
Really?
I think yes, I do think that. Yes,
Because we've taken pretty much everybody down to the wire. In fact,
Yep.
in some of them, it was overtime where like we should have beat the Ravens and we didn't. I mean, yes, our defense is Swiss cheese.
exactly. That's my point. Here's the thing. When you get to the playoffs, defenses tighten up. The Miami Dolphins found this out the hard way last year, right? Defenses tighten up when it gets colder out and when January and February roll around. The Bengals don't have a Super Bowl caliber defense. They're going to get to the playoffs and they're going to run into a team which is far more superior than them, and they're going to be an easy out. Don't get me wrong. Joe Burrow is having an MVP-like season this year, but he does not have help on the opposite side of the ball. And it makes no sense for them to get to the playoffs where it's going to be a one-and-done kind of affair. Like, what does that accomplish? When you could get a higher draft pick and get someone to help you on the defense. Think about that.
I mean, but the problem is that we won't have the number one draft pick anyway. So
You don't.
we'll touch about who's probably going to be the top defense draft pick here in a little bit because I know that you're excited about that. But
I'm just looking at it as sort of a long-term kind of thing. Sure, you get to the playoffs, but are you good enough to compete for a championship? And they're not. It's like being a 7 for 8 seed in the NBA. Sure, you got to the playoffs, but you're not good enough to compete or with the better teams there. And I look at that when I look at the Cincinnati Bengals. They're good, especially Burrow and Chase
and Co.
outside of that, I have a lot of questions, especially on defense and who their head coach is. Zach Taylor is not a good enough coach to get them to a Super Bowl. That first time was a fluke, I'm sorry to say. But I think it's beneficial for the Bengals long term to not make the playoffs.
I mean, while I agree with you in certain aspects, like the fan side of me is just going like, all right, well, like, who are we going to go up against? Because we got the Ravens, which we lost by a missed field goal in overtime.
Okay.
You've got the Chiefs, who we would have beaten if the laundry didn't come out. You know, it's if the Chiefs are the favorite to win it on that side of the coin. Now, are we getting past the Bills? Probably not. But we have beaten the Bills like a drum in the snow. So like I mean, it might be one of those things where Lou just hopes it gets freaking cold.
So real
Well-
quick, go ahead.
The Bills, let's be real, they're the team to make the playoffs and never advance. And also, I mean, haven't we seen the Bills? Like I know that they're having like a bang up season, all that stuff, but they're like historically known to like be not historically, but recently known to be a first round exit of the playoffs, especially last year. But I'm 50-50 about that whole thing with the yeah, I agree with Psylocke on the Bengals. It would be their best interest to miss the playoffs. But I mean, if the Bengals were somehow to make the playoffs is totally different. Like all records go down to 0-0 at that point. You could have these mid-looking teams throughout the season just make the playoffs and just make a statement for themselves. That's just sports and playoff history. That's just, it's very low chances, but it could absolutely happen. Just pull out an absolute stunner. So I
No, you
mean, like,
can't.
if you can make the playoffs and you still have the ability to make them the playoffs and you're not totally out of it, I would always say for a team, just always give it a shot. Like, of course. But
Yeah, I mean the one team that we'd have to play would be the Bills. That would give me like it wouldn't be competitive. And of course the other thing too is that they could always start signing some people. They won't, but they could.
I mean, there's many possibilities that could come into it. But all I'm concerned is when playoffs start, every team is 0-0. The only thing they got to show for it is their seed number. I mean, everybody expected the Ravens just to go all the way that one year, and you saw they got stunned.
Well, not everybody.
Well, not everybody, but like a lot of people were, betting on them winning the Super Bowl because they were one seed. Oh my gosh, the Ravens this, Ravens that, and then they just what happened?
Mahomes happened.
Literally.
Well, I'd also say real quick, with playoffs, you're absolutely right, Bunt. Everybody goes back to 0-0. But again, defenses tighten up. The game gets a lot more. It becomes a lot less. Let's throw the ball around. Let's control the clock. Let's run and pound the ball. I do think that teams like Baltimore and Kansas City will slow the game down a lot come playoff time, and a lot of this depends on coaching and who you have as coach. Obviously, Andy Reid. I trust Andy Reid in the playoffs more than I trust Zach Taylor or John Harbaugh for that matter.
That is
do
true.
do I think that the Bengals could upset the Ravens in a wild card matchup if they drew them? Sure. Because John Harbaugh, oh, good lord, John Harbaugh is not a good coach when it comes down to it. John Harbaugh does not know how to utilize his assets he has on his team in the form of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on a consistent basis. And we've seen this time after time in the playoffs. I also don't trust Zach Taylor. So if Zach Taylor were to go up against, say, Andy Reid or Tom McDermott, he's going to get outclassed. So I do think that it's possible they could catch a team off guard, like maybe the Texans or the Ravens. But after that, I don't think they're beating Kansas City, even if Mahomes is out. That team is too well coached. They have a lot of pieces on defense to keep them in games. And as far as the Bills go, they're probably the most complete team in the NFL, not named the Philadelphia Eagles. So it would just be okay, we won our wild card game. We're not beating anybody else. I just look at it as, what's the point? What do you get out of that? If this was a young team and it was their first time, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. But this is a team that's up against the clock. they have to win soon, or else they're going to be talking about pushing the reset button. Like, it's do or die in
Oh, it is. It
Cincinnati.
is. It is. It is not right now because I know everyone's sitting here like listening in and being like, okay, we're going to talk about other teams. We will. We will. There's other teams we're going to talk about. But T. Higgins fired his agent because his agent is the same one that cost us Jesse Bates and I believe one other piece of talent. And now T has the same agent as Chase. And Joe has been talking about the fact that he is working with the front office to get something done. So I have a feeling that Joe might be restructuring his contract to put in some more space in there so he can keep his two top receivers. And at that point, if that comes out of Joe and we start, doing the Mahomes game where we're moving stuff down we're kicking the can down the road, which we absolutely should, to be honest, with what we've got at quarterback and with those two. Like I am not, trust me, I have already gone through that like 2-10 season, or whatever it was. It was bad. It was rough. We would 100% accept that in exchange for a Super Bowl, and allowing some of that cap space for those wide receivers to come out of, Joe's pocket, so to speak, and getting rid of all the dead weight we've got on defense and restructuring there, and hopefully exploring other options on the defensive coordinator side of things. There's a good chance that we could be right back in the thick of it next year. Especially if Zach has learned his lesson and is going to keep calling plays like he's always down 20 points. Because that's been the big change, right? Now that he knows he can't rely on his defense, he's pulling out all the stops, and that's why Joe's having these crazy games. And you give him a halfway competent defense, and Zach keeps calling the same way that he is calling now. The AFC Championship game is within reach. Now,
I'll wrap. Oh, go ahead.
Now, if he goes conservative after that and he just turtles once he has a defense that he thinks he can rely on, and he regresses, that's going to be a problem.
I'll keep it short and end it here. I truly think that Burrow is not winning a Super Bowl anytime soon in Cincinnati, and I do think the end of the road is coming. It doesn't help that your owner is notoriously cheap, and I just don't see a path for Burrow to win one in his current setup unless they make wholesale changes, and that starts at the top with the coach. Zach Taylor, as I said, is not the coach to get you to a Super Bowl. He got lucky the last time. He's not going to get lucky again. And it's fine and dandy if you are trying to re-sign T. Higgins. But again, what about your defense? That is a more pressing issue that needs to be addressed than giving Joe Burrow another receiver. Like, Burrow supposedly is good. If he's supposedly good, you can put any Joe Schmo on the street and make them a viable wide receiver. Breeze did it, Manning did it, Brady did it. Burrow should be good enough to be able to do that.
He is. Don't know. It's just that what it does is that it frees up more options. Plus, it keeps Chase free. Like, that's the whole thing. It's like you were talking about, like, defenses tighten up. Well, how are you going to tighten up when you've got T out there and you've got Chase? You can't double team both of them. Whichever one you don't double team is having a fire game and is cooking you. That's the weapon that you get. And so then you don't need a top tier defense. You, like, literally, if we would have had middle of the pack defense, we would have been perfectly fine this year.
Okay.
But I mean, it's one of those things where if Joe's willing to say, hey, so now that I've got all this cap space that is dedicated to me, and I'm going to say, like, hey, let's move some of this down the road in order to free up cap space for my boys without really messing with anything on the math side of things, except for stuff like down the road, that frees up a ton because we have a ton of dead space now that we're going to have to make on defense. And we've got a lot of dead weight right now. because we spent way too much money on really bad folks on the defensive side of things. Now, part of that too is also Lou is inflexible, but also Lou is the one person who knows how to bottle up the Chiefs, and he's shown it time and time again. But everybody else, they can walk all over him. So anyway, we're gonna move on. And Sai, since you got you warmed up a little bit, so did you happen to check out the Bills and Detroit game?
I actually did. It proved to me two things. The Bills might be the best team in the NFL. We can make an argument whether that's the Bills or the Eagles, but they
It's the
went
Bills.
toe to toe with the Detroit Lions, an injured Detroit Lions team, but the Detroit Lions nonetheless. And it
No,
also
no.
proved
They weren't injured until the Bills game.
well. Well, listen. Detroit was eventually going to meet their match, and I've been saying for a while, if they ever came across a team that could keep up with them, keep up with that offense, they are in trouble. And we found that team. It is the Buffalo Bills. And I'd hazard to say it's also the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC. I mean, the Eagles practically, for more or less, run the same kind of offense the Lions do. What do? They rely on running the ball, sets up the pass. They have their quarterback make a couple of throws here and there. So I think the Eagles can safely keep up with them. And I also think the Bills proved that they might be the team to beat now in the NFL. I don't see another team, maybe the Eagles, I guess, but I don't see another team that has that. I would have said KC, but without Mahomes there, and that offense just looks so. There's something about them that I can't put my finger on, but they look lost. Initially they were sleepwalking, quote unquote, till the playoffs, but it's not that. There's something there, and maybe it's because there's a lot of inexperience in that wide receiver room, and Kelsey is on his last leg, but I'm not so sure now. But I did come away with thinking that the Bills are the team to beat. They have a great offense. Their defense is suspect, but they don't need a top flight defense. They need a defense that is going to bend but not break. As for the Lions, they have a lot of injuries. A lot of injuries in a lot of key places. And David Montgomery is now out for the rest of the season. I think it's Carlton Davis as well is also out. Aleem McNeil is out. Of course, we know Aiden Hutchinson. That's the biggest one. So the Lions they're cursed. I don't know what else to say about it, but there is just something about that team that even when they're winning, they're cursed.
You weren't going to cover all of the injuries that happened during the game because we've got maybe you have McNeil, and you got Montgomery, you got Carlton Davis, and then you got Dorsey.
That's a lot of injuries
in one game.
I've never seen anything like. Well, okay, the what was that game? The Buddy Ride. It was the body bag game, but I don't know how many injuries were actually in that game. I'd have to look it up. But as far as a single team, I've never seen anything like that. It's shocking. And
the only thing that rusts more than a Jeep is apparently the Detroit Lions.
Yeah. Well, it is. They are owned by the Fords, so build Ford tough, as they say. But it just boggles my mind also how competitive they still remain, even if they have injuries. So it's a testament to not only Campbell's culture that he's built in Detroit, but the amount of depth they've built up on the side. And this is why they're still a Super Bowl contender. They have a lot of great depth in the right places to keep this going in spite of having Aiden Hutchinson out, Montgomery out. So I think, I'm not going to bet against the Lions yet, but they're quickly becoming a huge unknown. in the NFC, and don't look now, but the Eagles might overtake them.
I mean, yeah, because
And
coming into this game, I'm 100% with you. So like coming into this game, I was like, well, this is going to be close, and it wasn't. Now, granted, there was a lot of injuries that took into place, but then there's also the coaching decision from Dan. Like, you're going to do an onside kick with 12 minutes to go. I mean,
he's channeling his inner Sean Payton.
well, yeah.
His
I mean,
inner-
it's always been with them go big or go home, and well, they went home, even though they went
Listen,
big.
when you do plays like that, it looks great and genius when it works. When it doesn't, you look foolish. And if you do
Yeah,
that enough times and it doesn't work and you start losing, people start to question you a bit. So, he can keep doing that for now because he wins and it's okay. He's like Riverboat Ron. What was his name? Ron, former Commanders coach. I forgot his last name. But he was known as Riverboat Ron because he gambled a lot. He did a lot of gutsy plays and he became known for that. But Campbell's the same way. And that's, of course, the culture he's established in Detroit. So it doesn't shock me. The problem is when it doesn't work, like that onside kick, well, people start looking at you funny and questioning you. I'd also say it doesn't help that the NFL changed the rules and you have to alert teams now when you're doing an onside kick. So the surprise
yeah,
factor is kind of not there anymore.
yeah. I
But
mean, I hate that as well because like I think that if they would have had the surprise factor, it would have worked. Um, the thing is just knowing the Detroit fans that I do is they're fine with it because I mean as much ripping as we gave them last year for just going for it instead of kicking the field goals. I think they just like that kind of football. And the thing is, before him, where were the Detroit Lions?
yeah,
So
non-existent.
I think they're fine, and I think they're not they're he is their best chance at a Super Bowl, but like he's gonna gamble it, and if he picks wrong, they're still gonna be fine with it because they're gonna think, well, if it would have worked, and honestly, I totally get it. Like I mean, I mean, granted, I'm from the AFC North, so like the one AFC North chant that we can all agree on is "fire your coach." Doesn't matter who it is. Pittsburgh wants to fire their coach all the time. Ravens want to fire their coach all the time. Browns, well, how many coaches have they gone through recently? Like, are they only their 12th coach this year? And then we want to fire our coach, but it's just the thing. Even if we win the Super Bowl, we're still ready to fire our coach. And so it's a little bit different, but yeah. Outside of that, did you want to talk about the Saints game?
Listen, I had a near crash out, during the 2-point conversion. I almost broke my TV. Like you've all seen that meme where the person's like, I just smashed my TV. My wife and kids are watching, and the wife took the kids to the mall. Like that almost happened,
Oh
minus the
my
wife and kids.
god. I've
Your
seen
wife and
those.
kids. Where did you pick
My
those up? Costco? Like are they like on a pallet?
whoa, I don't know about that.
That's crazy.
But no, listen. I am going to buy a Spencer Rattler jersey. He is the future quarterback of this team, and I like Derek Carr. I'm one of the few Saints fans who like Derek Carr. But what Rattler did that game-winning drive is just it's magical. And of course, in typical Saints fashion, we fuck it up. Excuse me, we screw it up at the end. Sorry. And I was so ready to just punch someone because it's like that play is emblematic of the Saints season. So close, but so far. It's like you take 2 steps forward and 10 steps back. So, listen, I don't know. We're what 5-9 now. Who cares? I'm way too invested in the Saints. At the same time, I can't stop watching them. So
Oh, I guess the one thing I didn't mention is me and my dad have tickets to the Broncos and Bengals game. So I really hope this like is actually still a path for us by that point. Oh, all right. Lexi 2.
Right? So,
So
I've
to it
usually
to
talked.
me. Oh, sorry. Yeah, here you go.
Yeah,
Lexi
well,
2.
I've.
So to it to me.
Yeah. Well, I usually talk about the Giants on this podcast. Instead, I'm going to talk about a team that is 20 times more successful and yet makes me just as angry somehow. The
Hmm.
New York Yankees. So,
No,
the
this
New
is
York
baseball. All
Yankees
right, I'm
used
done. No, keep going.
the Yankees used to be the evil empire of baseball. Everyone feared them. Everyone hated them because they weren't them.
No, we were just
Now, I
annoyed
was
because
not.
you were on Seinfeld.
That is also true. However, I was not around when the Yankees were the evil empire. I was around after. Think Jeter getting injured in the 2011 ALCS. Now, I know this team has had some measure of success, but they've been one of the most frustrating perennial contenders to watch in this sport. And now this is probably the best team that they've had since the Jeter days. You have an incredible generational talent in Aaron Judge. You get some really good acquisitions like Giancarlo Stanton and Juan Soto. And here's Hal Steinbrenner. He's looking at this and he's going, "We don't need to do anything at all. We don't need to be aggressive." Well, then what the hell are we here for? Because now, one of those offensive pieces that were supposed to put us over the top just left us for the Mets. The Mets! We are getting outbid by Steve Cohen. And to make matters worse, our best chance to replace him was to try and trade for Kyle Tucker from the Astros. The Cubs got him. You see what I mean? We're being outsmarted by worse teams. How do we let this happen? The
You
front
got
office is just
outsmarted by the Cubs.
yeah, they had a better offer because get this, Cashman didn't want to let go of Gill, who was a perfect player to give up. Like I would have absolutely 100% given him up for Kyle Tucker. I don't care if he was one of the best rookies last year. Now, and also another problem among this circus is that they have Aaron Boone at manager still. And he's still here because they just made the World Series. Why would we let him go? This is a guy who has gotten away with being carried by talent for far too long. And there were multiple things that he did in the World Series that would have been fireable offenses any other time and with anyone else. Not the New York Yankees, because Steinbrenner only cares about the brand. Hence my another point as to why this franchise is basically a joke. Their weird, archaic traditions. Why are we not allowing players to grow beards? What is this? The frickin' military?
I mean, you never know when they've just got to like immediately run to the dugouts and put on a gas mask. I mean, like that is just a thing. Like he seriously won't let them grow beards. Like that's a thing.
No, that's literally a rule.
So
It's
Movember, like,
ridiculous.
is
It's
not a thing.
ridiculous. Yeah, I know. It's just not a thing with this club. I'm just as flabbergasted about this as all of you are. And
Well, no, it's just another reason to hate the Yankees for me. That's fine.
oh no, I
Absolutely.
totally get it. I totally get it.
Look, the beard is what helps batters bat a lot, trust me. If you have a
Mhm.
beard in baseball, your batting average just went up by like 0.050.
Yeah, and it's become a common meme on baseball Twitter to have players photoshopped clean shaven, and they're like, "Do not let this man go to the Yankees. He would look so ugly and lose all of his aura." And they're right.
So just side story. I was doing some work in New York, and I was working on one of the airports there, and I had to catch a flight. And the job, like as I was trying to leave to go get on my flight, went a little long. There was a problem, and so I couldn't like go straight to the hotel, clean up, and then get on the flight. Instead, I had to literally leave from the job site, and which meant that I was wearing a hard hat the entire day, and then didn't. And if you don't know anything about wearing hard hats, is like your hair looks like crap. And so as I'm going into the airport, I stopped by the little gift shop that's right there, and was like, I just need a hat. And they go, well, we've got New York Yankee hats, and that's all we have. Like, oh, great. So me, in being me, was able to find the only red New York Yankee hat that I could possibly find. I was like, I'm wearing that because it's going to upset a lot of people on a lot of different flights that I've got to take on my way back home.
I mean, I've seen red New York Yankees snapbacks, and I thought they looked pretty cool. So I really don't blame you for doing that.
Yeah, well, it's funny to get like the thumbs up for the people from Boston as you're going through, and you're just like, I hate baseball.
Yeah. Now
Ah,
going back. Now
go
going
ahead.
back to what inspired this rant, which was losing out on Soto. Um, Looking through a sort of expose from his agent about why he left the Yankees, you just look through it and you're wondering, wow, the Yankees just have the weirdest policies, don't they? Why did they make their players pay for their own booths? I get that they have the money, but they are literally the reason that those guys are sitting in those stands. Don't make them pay for that stuff. They deserve to have that for free. And of course, that thing with the security guard and not letting Juan Soto's family into the game, like, yeah, absolutely. Anybody would be livid at this. I absolutely would be thinking about where I'm going in free agency if that happened to me. I really don't blame Soto for doing what he did at all. The Mets offered him more money. They offered him a crap ton of job security. Like, yeah, for all we know, there's a non-zero chance this guy becomes Bobby Bonilla 2.0, gets hurt, or starts sucking or very early in his contract, and now all of a sudden the Mets are paying him millions upon millions every year. But here's the thing: that doesn't matter to Steve Cohen. The guy has boatloads of money. He has like 10 Brinks trucks worth of money. He's probably already made that contract back in a week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah, baseball just has some of the grossest contracts I've ever seen. That's a rant for another time. Now,
Yeah, yeah, so I guess we're gonna move on then.
Oh,
So we're
I
gonna
was about
skip
to.
over. Go ahead. Oh no, yes, go ahead,
Oh,
please.
I was gonna touch on that. Listen, as I put in the Monday podcast chat, I'm all for people making as much money as they want. That's fine. But I have an issue with how baseball allows this to go on because you have teams spending close to $1 billion on one player. Yes, I get it. It's all, usually they spread it out over 10, however many years, but it doesn't seem fair where you have a group of teams owned by multi-billionaires who can afford to spend lavishly. Then you have other teams who unfortunately are owned by people who are very cheap, like the Orioles or the A's or whoever, or the Rays owner, and it just doesn't seem fair. And we're supposed to just accept that it's normal for teams to sell out close to $1 billion on one player, and then be shocked when they win the World Series, like the Dodgers did. Like I just don't think it's fair. And maybe there should be, a salary cap or something in baseball to make it more competitive. I don't know, but I just wanted to say that because when I saw he's getting paid 700 and was it 50 or 15, one of the two. I'm just like, are you serious? You're getting paid that much money to play baseball? Or oh my god, I'm signing my kid up to play baseball. Like I have to expect we're gonna see $1 billion contract in baseball. It's
Didn't
gonna happen.
didn't didn't we already see one?
No,
I thought we saw one
Otani
that was
had
close.
no. So what you had happen was no, it wasn't baseball. So Saudi Arabia offered Mbappe $1 billion to go play over in their sports league. That's what you may have heard. But as far as North American sports go, uh, Otani had it before Soto surpassed him with 765. But see, there you go. Looking at this,
yeah, so I posted that in there for reference just to show the disparity between the teams with the most money and the teams with the least money.
Jesus Christ, A's 67 for Luis Severino. Oh my God, you can't make this up. Oh my God. But it's the usual suspects. It's the usual suspects that you see every year with the largest contract towards the bottom. The Rays, the O's. I'm honestly shocked by the Astros, but the Pirates and the Sox, obviously. It's just like that doesn't seem fair, But
I mean, baseball is one of those sports where a couple of tweaks and I might be interested. Like number one is you're gonna have to have a cap me to be interested in baseball because otherwise New York is going to just try and dominate all the time. Now, the fact that they haven't is just icing on the cake that it's not working, but it should still not be a thing. And then secondly, somebody has to tackle somebody when they're going to catch a pop fly.
that'll never happen. Oh God, the Chris Davis contract. That was so bad. I'm not even an Orioles fan, and I know that one.
I want the XFL to like make an XMLB and like make it fun.
But Rob Manfred's making it fun. He's doing all these weird rules to make baseball quick and fun again.
He's trying to turn that into an arcade game, and I don't like it.
It's still boring.
I know. He's
trying to bring in younger fans by putting in all of this gimmicky stuff. You want to know what would bring them in? How about you stop blacking out games in the weirdest of areas? Like you could live in the middle of nowhere.
Nobody cares about the blackout games. No. Tackle them. I want to see somebody go up to make a catch. Like the fact that the fan, like he goes to catch the ball over the I can't even remember what game that was in October, but like he goes to catch it and they're like the fans are like prying around and everyone's like criticizing the fan. I was like, no, you've just made baseball way more interesting for me because now there's a home field advantage for somebody. Like screw you.
That was the Yankee game where the fans got involved and people got upset over it. But it's like,
yeah, screw you.
Kind of fun.
Yeah. Like, first off, if you cross that plane, like we should just have football talk. If you cross that plane, it's fair game. And if the fan that just so happens to be there happens to be the home field team, you know what that's going to do? That's going to drive up this cost of sales for the perimeter around the baseball team. So the owners are going to love that. Also, fans are going to love it too because it's a chance for them to interact and do something. Well, it's like a $250 million player that you're attacking. So my team's going to win.
Or, this is going to sound very controversial, and I don't mean anything. I'm not endorsing what I'm about to say, but there is this school of thought that's out there that's like, well, if you want to reach the younger fans, just let the players take, HGH, PEDs, and hit home runs again. Because let's be honest, the MLB was a lot of fun when they were hitting dingers left and right.
No, make them wear pads and have people tackling them when they go to make those catches, and then like it fixes everything I hate about baseball.
You can tackle them when they try. Okay, if you've ever seen a catcher try and tackle someone heading for home plate, it's very cathartic. It's very fun to watch. But
all right, so there's gonna be a lot of people in comments and just be like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I was a catcher, and like I was the turtle.
Pause.
You throw me the ball, I'm turtling up, and you have to get through me to get to home plate. And their options were A, try to get around me, which they never did, or try to go through me and make me drop the ball. I never dropped the ball. I'm used to being in pads, and I think that if everybody had to wear pads and everybody else got tackled, it would be a much more fun game.
If someone takes steroids, see what happens. What's the worst that can happen?
Well, then you're setting a bad precedent, and then you're going to get people on. Yeah.
Well, I'm not serious when I say this, although I do, and I could rant about this for hours, but I do take issue with the MLB's hypocrisy, and especially not Manfred's, Selig's hypocrisy on the whole steroid stuff, and them being like, oh, steroids are bad. Meanwhile, they're promoting, McGuire and Sosa like it's the best thing ever.
Well, they did, but yeah.
You know what they're doing. Like the MLB was very much aware of what was going on. But anyway, that's a discussion for a different day.
Well, because they were trying to stay relevant because they refused to change the rules, and that's the other part of the thing. Anyway, Bunt.
How about them dogs?
How about them puppies?
How about them dogs? How about them dogs?
So for those of you that weren't paying attention since the beginning, we all got together to watch this game. And unfortunately, I called at the very beginning that it was going to screw me over and it was going to go into overtime.
And it did just that. But it was a good outcome. The Dogs won. They beat Texas for a second time, and Texas is now 11 and Georgia because their only 2 losses are to Georgia. But yeah, no, my takeaway from that game, my offense was making me so frustrated. Offense was making me so mad. Texas offense was just so, like our defense was just laying all over their offense and just not letting them get through it all. Our defense showed why, Georgia has always had a name in defense and why we were stone brick solid in the playoffs with our defense.
Were we watching the same game? Because they took you into overtime.
Yeah, they did. The reason why we got taken in overtime is because our offense took forever to score. Our defense was what kept us in the game. If Texas kept on, like if they started scoring, if our defense was just going to lay down and quit, then Texas would just keep on running up the score and run up the score. If it wasn't for our defense, that game we would have lost. Just saying.
So are you still a firm believer in SEC dominance? Or do you think this year might be your year that
No,
y'all
I still think SEC has more teams. That's better. Honestly.
do,
I
do
still
you
think
th-
I still
do
think
you
that
think-
the SEC I still think that the SEC is right now the better conference than any other. Because let's look at the Big Ten, right? Who is the Big Ten flexing on? Who is
Oh,
the Big
boy.
Ten flexing on? They're literally only have like Oregon to flex, and now maybe Penn State because they actually put up a fight. But I don't know. I still think they only really flexing Oregon right now.
We'll get on Penn State's problems later. But
Big 12, Arizona State. I mean, yeah, they look solid, but like that's the only team. ACC, that's a whole another can of worms that we all know that we won't open because the ACC is just bad.
what?
Also,
Because the math doesn't work in your favor on that one.
what do you mean?
Strength of schedule, math.
Oh god, here we go. Strength of schedule. Who have? Oh my goodness, these teams in the ACC. If that's what you're talking about, if you're talking about a strength of schedule, it's only hard for them because they make it hard.
Because again, keep in mind what happened is last year we had an undefeated SEC or ACC team, and everyone was like, "Well, they didn't play anybody." Well, they did. And they were tough teams, and yet they were left out in the cold.
Yeah, I was totally for Florida State winning, but I'm like making the playoffs that year.
Oh,
I'm
winning.
not saying I didn't mean to say winning. My bad. I'm sorry. What I meant to say was I was all up for Florida State making it that year, but I'm talking about this year. This
See,
year.
I have
This-
in front of me
this year.
the
This year.
options, and it's like I could sit there and be like, I could cheer on SMU, and they'll win, and they'll win the whole thing, and then that would just prove my point that the ACC is better. Problem
Okay.
is,
Okay.
no, stop. The problem is that SMU is basically our version of Texas A&M right now. So it's the money bags school. And so I don't want that to happen. But my alternative is I get to cheer on Clemson, which we kicked the snot out of.
And so did we.
Yeah. But also it's Clemson, which their fans are more.
So what's the argument
which,
here?
Which was more obnoxious? Like I am torn on who I get to cheer for now, on the ACC side of things. I mean, I would rather an ACC school beat whoever else is in front of them, But at this point, like Oregon, please just prove that Nike money is way better than like used car salesman money, which is what the SEC has.
Look, I'm just gonna be real. Well, if the argument is that the ACC is like any better than these other conference, look who's the only teams that are in the playoffs right now. You got Clemson and SMU, two solid teams. Not denying it, but first off, we already slaughtered one of them, and second off, SMU, they lost to the team that we slaughtered.
Wait. Just all right. Since we're playing that game, Bunt. So what was the Georgia-Kentucky game score?
It was 20-17, but no, 20-19. It was one of them. It was a close game, yes, but did we still come out with a win?
Okay. Do you want to tell me what the Kentucky and Louisville score was?
It was a lot more, but try playing Texas. Try playing Tennessee. Try playing who else? Who else do we have? Try playing Bama. Y'all get. I'm gonna be real. Bama's beating y'all. I'm taking it for once. I actually do believe Bama would beat Louisville.
Bunt. It was 41-14.
Who's in the playoffs and who's not? I don't see no Louisville in the playoffs right now.
Even though they have the number one strength of schedule in the country right now.
But look at y'all's
Are you in the
record.
playoffs?
Look.
You guys lose 4
Why
games?
is this? Hold up. My thing is, why is this an argument when Louisville could just win? You know, they could
that's
just
a good
win.
question. That's a good question because like you're gonna use all of these numbers and you're gonna say, well, no, like Louisville.
All right. Let's look at
Georgia
this.
beat up on like poor old Clemson, and it's
I
like
mean, it is a fair argument though. Louisville's not in the playoffs, so
That is what I'm saying.
yeah.
To be
If
fair-
Louisville was good, they would have made the playoffs, and
They're-
no matter what their strength of schedule is, because if you look at it, Georgia had the hardest way of making the SEC championship and winning it and making the playoffs in the SEC. But look, we made it. We made it.
Yeah, I know. If we would have beat the weird tree people from California, because we had to fly all the way. I'm sorry. We had to fly all the way to California to play a football game.
Tree people.
To Stanford University because of
Yeah.
the offsides. That was
so-
the wildest offsides I've ever seen.
But I
That
do
was
want to know,
crazy.
like, just in general, like, how often are you guys on planes and have to fly across the country to go play a conference opponent?
It ain't often, but we'll beat people wherever. I mean, we did it in the 2018 Rose Bowl against Oklahoma.
Okay, so what were your losses this year?
To Alabama and Ole Miss.
Okay, and what were their losses to?
To Vandy and Kentucky. But if you're gonna go ahead and say it, we still beat Kentucky, even though Kentucky beat Ole Miss. It's a fucking well.
Oh, there you go, Lexi.
God damn it!
Yeah. You're not wrong though, Bunt. You were not wrong.
Really? Because Vandy.
Listen.
Again, Vandy is the canary in the coal mine. If you ever want to know when the SEC is in a down season,
Counterpoint, we're still in the playoffs. We might have lost to these two teams, but they were ranked and we lost to them directly, and we are still in the playoffs after having the hardest schedule in the SEC to make the SEC championship and the playoffs.
Actually,
When
you
everybody
didn't.
had doubted us, we still made it and are the second seed.
You didn't have the hardest in the SEC.
Who did?
Statistically, we did.
No, I think statistically, Oklahoma had the hardest.
Hold up. I'm gonna look that up. See strength of schedule real quick.
I posted it. Scrolling up. So what was that there, Cream Puff?
My whole thing is I was looking at preseason, strength of schedule. Like,
Oh, so instead of like actually what occurred.
Hold on now.
because preseason, like looking at it before the season, we had to face all these ranked teams, and still coming out on top. But like after everything was said and done, Oklahoma may have had the hardest schedule, but like at one point, Georgia was faced with the hardest schedule from what it looked like. From like let's put these teams up against Georgia because we suspect them to be good, and we don't see them duke it out. So it looked like Georgia was going to have the hardest season, and it still was because we still had to play many ranked teams, unlike some of these other teams.
Many ranked teams, which just means that on the coach, are you going off of the coaches poll or are you going off the AP poll?
The AP poll. We've had to play Tennessee, Texas, Clemson, Alabama, Ole Miss when they were ranked.
When?
They are still ranked. My whole thing is it's the playoffs now. The dogs, like I said earlier with the whole playoffs thing, everybody goes to 0-0 and it's a whole new season at that point.
I mean, that part is true.
Regardless, your whole argument, you can believe that the SEC is on its down year, and it still is, but I solely believe that the SEC still has more of an argument this year than most of these other conferences.
So the biggest thing. So first off, 2 caveats for anyone that's listening. Bunt and I have a bet about whether or not the SEC is going to win the national championship, and so I am a firm believer that the SEC is not. Someone else will. Bunt is on the opposite side on that, and it's fine. It's good. It's good between friends bet.
See, you know what I believe here, E? I believe that you're just spitting out all this because you're starting to get nervous. You're starting to see that, Georgia's starting to revive. We have 3 SEC teams up in this playoff right now. And you may have Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, and Penn State in there, but the ones that actually look like they can do something is really only Oregon, maybe Ohio State, but who knows? There's a whole nother topic of that coming up. They might even just get blown out at home by Tennessee. Who knows?
I have 2 things on this. First off, one, the SEC was the one that immediately threw a hissy fit because Alabama wasn't allowed into the playoffs for whatever reason, and just were obnoxious about the whole fiasco.
If you think if I'm mad about Alabama missing the playoffs, you're extremely mistaken. I'm glad they missed the playoffs.
Right, but your conference is, and they want things changed, and it's like, sorry, y'all got beat by Vandy. Like
Alabama absolutely deserves to miss the playoffs. Alabama down there in old Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Listen, I maintain that Kent State would beat most SEC teams, and I'd put money on that happening.
At least
most MAC teams would probably beat an SEC team. So it's just facts, and people don't have to accept the truth about that. But
here's the salty Maryland fan again. Oh my gosh, getting blown out by Penn State.
I'm not salty at all. Look, Billy Edwards chased his 7-figure NIL deal to Wisconsin. He's their problem now. I'm not salty at all. What do I got to be salty about? Another 4-8 season incoming? Sure, it is what it is. I'm happy.
I had a second point, but I don't even think I need it at this point.
I think this conversation is going to look really funny when GT runs all over everyone and the Boise State wins the entire thing.
I mean, I wouldn't doubt it because JD. Oh wait, that's a whole nother.
I still win. Yeah, like Boise State. Yeah, go get your natty.
I'd be happy about it. Yeah.
If you don't have a dog in this race and you're not rooting for Boise State, what is wrong with you? Like
I'm
seriously.
rooting for anyone that's not the SEC at this point.
I need Boise State to win.
Except for I want Tennessee to win the first round, but like we'll get into that in a minute. We're gonna go ahead and move on. So we do have some breaking news that if you aren't familiar with what's going on, we really love the PopTart Bowl.
Oh wait, doesn't the trophy toast Pop-Tarts?
Yes.
Yes. So that is part one of the breaking news that came out was that the new trophy for the Pop-Tart Bowl is a fully functional toaster.
That is so cool. I want it.
I
I'm
know.
jealous.
Developed by GE Electronics out of Louisville, Kentucky, of all places.
Oh, here we go. We're about to hear why Louisville is the greatest place on earth. Let's hear it, E.
I live near Cincinnati, but I do desperately miss Louisville. But that
I
was
knew it.
I was just throwing that out there. The second part of the news is it is rumored that the mystery flavor will be Cinnabon. Because if you remember, there are 3 Pop-Tarts that are going to be at this bowl. And only one of them gets selected to be sacrificed to the toaster gods, I suppose. And I can't remember what the other 2 are, but there's 2 of them that were named, so you can look that up. And then there is the mystery flavor, which is currently rumored to be Cinnabon. So
I'm gonna be real. I could mess up. I could mess up a Cinnabon Pop-Tart.
would you
If
pick that
if that's
over?
real.
Would you pick that over like the brown sugar?
I don't know. It kind of depends, honestly. Like, I feel like I would just because of the curiosity of the taste.
Yeah, because I want to say it was like blueberry, brown sugar, and then the other one's the mystery flavor, and the rumor is like the Cinnabon, which is like, yes, I'll take the Cinnabon. Yeah, go ahead.
I really
Cinnabon
feel for
dream.
cookies and cream. I think cookies and cream was snubbed here. Like this was a grand opportunity for them.
Oh, that's next year, and like that one's gonna be like the next year, like the big one, because like cookies and
Boy,
cream. Yeah, I'm with you.
I sure hope so. I really do.
Cookies and cream was that good dessert flavor.
Yeah, which is weird for a breakfast snack, but
Listen, as kids, we didn't complain.
Oh, absolutely.
So whatever it was, we were just gonna eat it.
If it tasted sweet, then it was great.
Yeah.
All right, Psylocke, you want to give us like a rundown of the Heisman?
Yeah. So, they had their Heisman presentation the other night, and surprise, surprise, the winner was Travis Hunter of Colorado. Travis Hunter becomes the first defensive player to win the Heisman since Charles Woodson did in 1997. Yes, you heard that right. 1997, a time when Blockbuster was still a thing. All right? It has been a while. So,
Nokia phones were a thing.
yeah, I was some years old. I don't remember how old I was, but I was some years old back then. So there's a lot of, I don't want to say controversy with the Heisman this year. I think a lot of people thought it was Ashton. I can never pronounce his name correctly.
Ashton Janey.
Is it Janty?
I think it's Janey, right?
I've been saying G&T.
Yes. So Mr. Janty, I apologize, but Ashton Janty. A lot of people felt he was more deserving, especially with him being the big reason why Boise State is in the college football playoff this year, as opposed to Travis Hunter, who, let's be honest, Travis Hunter had a great year. He had a great year, so did Shador in Colorado. But a lot of people felt like because of the school he played at, the high-profile nature of his coach and everything surrounding him, he got a leg up. There was also controversy surrounding him with the Blitnikoff Award. He was awarded as the nation's best wide receiver. Many people have said, well, there was a wide receiver at San Jose State, I believe, who led the nation in all the categories, and he wasn't selected. So it's a kind of controversial pick. At the same time, I get it though. And I can't really be upset. I mean, history was made. It's nice to see a defensive player finally win it after so many years. But just looking at the total points, it wasn't really a contest. It was between Travis Hunter, Ashton Jonty. Then of course we had Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, and then so on and so forth. But that's about it. I personally don't put any stock in the Heisman because that's not really the best indicator of how well you're going to do at the next level. We've had Heisman winners like Troy Smith who have won it, and they turn out to be nothing in the NFL. Like Troy Smith was a backup for the Ravens, but he won it in I think it was 07, I believe. I don't know, that might have been a Tebow year, but
To be fair, Lamar won it as well, though.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's not a great predictor of it. For all the amount of busts you get, you also get some surprises like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. You also get Jason White and Gino Torretta. I think he won too. But so we'll see what happens at the next level. Hunter should go number one, I think. Well, it depends on who's number one, who's drafting first overall. If it's the Raiders or the Giants, no, they're taking quarterbacks. But a team like New England or the Jags, they'll come calling for his services. But it's nice to see.
That's an interesting take. Yeah.
Can I put a little bit of input in here?
Go ahead.
Go for it.
So I'm not at all really hurt that Travis Hunter wanted to because good defensive and offensive player. You love to see it because Travis Hunter is an amazing player. But I was a little upset because they still can't really neglect Janie's season. Like despite him being at Boise State and they haven't seemed to have played anybody, you still got to look at the fact of the stats. Like I got some right here. Like for the third time this season, Ashton Janney has more than 200 rushing yards in a game. Let's see, 125 plus rush yards in every game this season. Ashton Janney has had more regular season rushing yards than 106 FBS teams. University of Houston and Kent State have less offensive points than Ashton Janney. Ashton Janney has 180, University of Houston has 168, and Kent State has 167. I know that's not saying a lot because, both those teams are a little whack, but still, him putting up more numbers than a whole team is kind of crazy. Schools with fewer offensive touchdowns than Ashton Janney: Florida State, University of Houston, Wyoming, Northwestern, Purdue, Temple, Kent State, Kentucky, New Mexico State. I think that's Southern Mississippi, Akron, UTEP, Air Force, Michigan State, Middle Tennessee, and UCLA. You have Ashton Janney, top 5 leading rushers in college football, 2,288 rushing yards, and 1,695, this is the second most rushing yards. If it was a whole different person, 1,695 rushing yards after contact. Teams with fewer rushing yards than Ashton Janney. And like I said, that was 106, I think I said, teams? Yeah, 106 FBS teams. So, oh yeah, also this. Ashton Janney, 2,497 rush yards. And Derrick Henry's Heisman season, 2,219 rush yards. So, that's why I was question marking the choice a little bit. You look at Travis Hunter and what he did. Yes, it was a phenomenal thing, but if you look at everything Janney has done, regardless, you may be playing the wackest of teams, but you cannot neglect those stats. Those are record-breaking stats that you don't see on the norm, regardless.
The thing that I found very interesting was that it showed once again that the West Coast does not appreciate defense at all. Because if you look at like the voting breakdown by region, the West Coast area was the only one, I believe, that did not select the current winner. So you might be able to back me up on that.
I had just closed that, but yeah. So Jonty won that the far west region. He won that, not by a lot, just a little bit over Travis Hunter. Hunter swept pretty much every other region by a good margin. So in the far west, so for those who aren't aware, the Heisman Trophy, what they do is they break the results. They have people all throughout the country, over 900, who vote on the Heisman. Think of it like the Electoral College, more or less, if that's an easier visual. And what they do is they break it down by region. So there's the Midwest, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, South, Southwest, and Far West. So Hunter pretty much performed and won each of the regions, with the exception of the Far West. Now you might be thinking, how is that possible? Because Colorado plays out west, and a lot of people on the West Coast, Rocky Mountain West, they're used to seeing them on TV. Jonty also plays out west as well in Boise, and so does Dylan Gabriel. But looking at the Far West, Jonty only won the Far West by 3 points, 357 to 354. So it's interesting to see how that played out. But I guess there kind of is a theory to what you're saying, but not a big one when we're breaking down the numbers. Like it doesn't seem like, nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, other than of course Dylan Gabriel having 111, but everywhere else it's less than 100. But that makes sense because Oregon is, out west. So
My whole thing is, it felt to me personally, and anybody else can think of it any other way. I felt like it had a lot to do with popularity, media, all that stuff. That's
it
just
does.
me. I truly believe
It
that.
kind of does.
I
It kind of
truly
does.
believe that.
I mean, to be fair, like I'm going back to Lamar. There were a lot of people that are just like, well, Lamar doesn't deserve it because he doesn't play anybody, and then he just like clowns over everybody except for like LSU, and it's like, well, but he didn't beat LSU, and it's like, yeah, because if he would have had a semblance of an O line, he would have as well. So like, I always hate to like, well, it's a popularity con, but it's not, because like, to be fair, Louisville's not a powerhouse football football school. We want to be. We are desperate to be so, but we're not.
I'd say for this year, I could get behind the idea that it was a popularity contest in the sense of you have a player from the most high profile school outside of the SEC named Colorado, and that had to have played some kind of a factor in everything that we've seen. But I
mean, it
don't
helped.
think it does. But I don't think in general the Heisman is a popularity contest. What I do think it is, it's an offensive award, and it has unfortunately neglected defensive players for far too long. And let's keep it a stack. If Travis Hunter was a pure defensive player, meaning he only took defensive snaps, he would not have won it. Charles Woodson as well was not a pure defensive player. He also returned kicks, so that also plays a role. But I think this year you could say, well, because of where he played, who his coach is, and the media, that probably played a role. But outside of that, every other year, no. I don't think that's the issue with the Heisman. I do think there is an issue, but it's not popularity.
If that was the case, if defensive players still won the Heisman, I, You go ahead and put what's his face? Jordan Davis, 2021, 2022 Jordan Davis out there. Bro was unstoppable. No lineman could block him. He was out here running he was a 4 flat as a 300 something pound dude tackling these guys. Like
Did he
that's
even
why
get invited?
that's why I'm saying if defensive players still want it, Jordan Davis would have had a huge argument that year he was still in college.
I'm curious. Did he even get any votes that year? I'm gonna go and find out. You got me
I'm kinda
curious.
I didn't keep up with it that year that much because I was just too focused on the Dogs even making the championship game and all that stuff. But no, Jordan Davis was scary in his college
All right.
days.
We'll probably have to table that though for next time. So like, do your research and figure it out. We'll throw it in as a topic for next time, because we are over time. Check us out next week when we come back. We're definitely talking about Ohio State next week. We're over, so we'll see you then. Bye, everybody. Hey, everybody, say bye.
Bye.
Oh, bye.